We are now covering Season 7, Episode 9, Honest Apple. Ugh. Let me get my boxing gloves. I think I'm going to need them for this one. Let's just lace up here. There we go. Alright. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Applejack. Alright, so this episode is brought to us by, I don't remember his name and I don't care, because it's yet another example of a one-off. I'm holding up one thing. I know you can't really tell. Well, another one-off. I don't even remember. Who is this? Who is this person? Kevin Lapin? Kevin Lapin? I have no idea. New person. Cool. Don't know if they'll do any episodes in the future. We've been getting some interesting stuff. Mostly not great, but we've had some decent stuff from these one-off authors and writers, so... You know, it's not a necessarily bad thing, and there is a value and a benefit into bringing in new blood, as I've talked about before. Let's just go through this in order. First of all, Rarity Crush. Let's just get that out of the way. Add a ticker to the Rarity Crush counter in Season 7. Now, Savacom said, this is an excellent thing. Crushes are awesome. Unfortunately, we've actually removed Crushers from existence, which is funny, since the only crush I've ever had was on Crusher. I'm sorry, I shouldn't explain the joke. Hear me out for a second. I'm not going to rant about the Rarity Crush. What I am going to rant about is the Rarity Crush. The fact that it's not only present in the episode, but has given a surprising amount of screen time. There are 3 distinct moments in which the Rarity Crush is given screen time in the intro. Now, why is that relevant? When you're crafting an episode like this, you have to think about what is shown on camera. Anybody who's looked at television knows this in general. This is true even in Star Trek, which has 44-minute episodes. But these are 22-minute episodes. They have to be very careful with their screen time, right? This is why a lot of stuff happens off camera. They didn't show Applejack reaching out to Pinkie Pie and saying, hey, I need you to distract Rarity for a bit. Can you do that for me? And Pinkie Pie saying, sure. They just showed the result of that. Yeah, exactly, that's us. Everything that is shown for a reason. So emphasis is put on everything that is on camera. You with me? The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is the kind of thing that happened a lot in Season 1. Not the emphasis thing. The Rarity Crush having emphasis thing. If you just showed me the cold open, I would say, without knowing, I would say, oh, this is a Season 1 episode. Now, that's actually not true, because the animation is clearly better. But you get my point, right? In fact, to be completely blunt, and I don't know if this is true, I would not be surprised if Mr. Lapin, or however you pronounce his name, was actually, like, tasked to write an episode, watched Season 1, or was familiar with Season 1, and then wrote this episode. Then, we have Pinkie Pie with the guitar. And then we have a wah-wah into the title. Now, that's not exactly an uncommon thing, but it's also the kind of thing that happened a lot more back in Season 1. So then, we come back from the cold open. We come back from the title. What? You already said that, darling. I'll give you that. That got a chuckle out of me. Apparently, Rarity never decided to actually approach AJ about this whole idea. I'd remind you that Rarity is a fairly organized person who is accomplished and experienced, I guess is the word I want to use here, at managing quite a few things simultaneously. I also want to point out that Applejack apparently only has one character trait, being honest. Wow, I figured she was a character, but little did I know. Then we have more Spike Crush getting screen time. This then leads to an interesting scene. This is probably one of the better constructed aspects of the episode, which is sad. So Apple Bloom is there with a big froofy hat and a big old ribbon. Now, hear me out for just a second here. So, Apple Bloom is stumbling around because the ribbon is too long. It's draping around to the point where she can step on it while she moves. Now, anyone with a working brain could look at that and say, oh, duh, we'll just tighten the ribbon, right? Tighten it up, maybe put a bow up top, and then the ribbon will be up around her jawline, and now she has the hat now secured on her head, and she can move around without issues. Done! Practical solution maintaining fashion. What Applejack does is rips the ribbon off and says, you're good. This is a simplistic solution to a complex problem. And I want you to remember that. So, continuity counter. There's actually several that could qualify here, but there's a big one I think absolutely defines, and that is Miss Pommel is actually debuting in Manhattan. She has actually made it to the point where she is actually doing her own shows. That absolutely qualifies as a continuity counter in my book. So, yeah, nice shout out to Coco Pommel. At the 6-minute and 20-second mark, the episode has started to lose me. First of all, AJ doesn't lack in tact this badly. If you're paying attention, this is a problem we've been having with several episodes I don't like across the last few seasons. Exaggeration, Flanderization is what it's usually called, and with good reason. It is taking a single character trait of a character and exaggerating it to the point where it's a little bit ridiculous. Yeah, AJ is honest. She's not oblivious. That's a good way to put that. So anyways, the second thing I want to point out is the music in this episode is bad. This is rare for me to comment on. I usually don't discuss music when it comes to television unless it's relevant, either good or bad. MLP, since the very beginning, has done this thing where there are musical stings and cues and instruments and approaches which are specifically used in order to emphasize what's going on screen. Now, I imagine some of you probably don't remember this, but way back in Season 1, one of the things I complained about was how over the top and too much a lot of the musical cues were back then. This is something they moved out of from Season 1. From basically Season 2 until, honestly, this episode, it's mostly background stuff, which can go to good effect or can go to bad effect, and I've been trying to point it out as we go. This is way too much. There is just... like, not only is the music too loud, which the sound designer in me noticed, but there's too much music. It's actively distracting from the events that are happening on screen. Kinda like happened back in Season 1. I swear I'm not trying to make that point. The episode is making this point for me. Then we meet the designers. I'll go ahead and admit, I actually find them more interesting than I probably should, despite the fact that each of them is a complete stereotype. We've got the ditz, we've got the artsy-fartsy, and we got the typical goth chick. I shrug. For one-off characters, they didn't bother me all that much. Especially since I've met people like all three of them. As a quick aside, of those three archetypes, the one I tend to get along with the least is the artsy-fartsy type. There's a reason I use that phrase as an insult. Because it's an insult, those people are stupid. I've decided, rather than actually put the time and effort into combine the paint with something else, I've decided to throw paint at the wall. It's indicative of the intimicable relevance of human existence and how we must constantly strive against our own inferior... No, you threw paint at a wall. Smack. That is possible in Pure Star Destroyer. That actually happens quite a bit. Recycling old episodes is a very common thing. Hell, there's an episode in Season 2 of TNG which is recycled from another show entirely. The Child. There's actually other examples of that in television. It's just the first episode that come to mind immediately when I think of that. Yeah, sorry, and a double smack, whack. So, so what irritates me here? Let's. I'm speaking in vagueness because in a moment here you're gonna start seeing paragraphs in my notes. I have like 2 pages of notes on this episode, by the way. So buckle in. What irritates me is that practicality has purpose in fashion. Making something practical and good looking is an art, and it is way harder to do than either of the other by themselves. Anyone who has even the tiniest tidbit of reaching into fashion geekdom knows what I'm talking about. Even if you don't, that's fine. You probably have a functioning brain and can understand how making a coat that looks good and yet nevertheless is still a good coat is a very difficult thing to do. The reason this irritates me so much is because this could have been part of the thrust of the episode, an attempt to merge practicality and fashion. Instead, it portrays the two as being in war with each other, which is a false dichotomy. Fashion-y and practicality are not opposites. Thank you, Baron. Very much. Ever and always. Much appreciate. You know the question. So, now we get into the montage. First of all, she pokes out... She points out the deliberate tearing of the pants. Let me go ahead and be clear. I actually don't like that particular style of fashion either. However, it's worth noting that there is a style to actually shredding pants or shredding clothing to make it look good, as opposed to just putting holes in clothes. Anybody who has worn clothes for a long period of time, especially who does, physical labor for a while, and I count myself on that list, by the way, knows that the kind of holes and rattiness in the parts where your clothing will start to patch out is completely different than the specifically crafted and specifically designed areas, direction, and size of the tears that are designed in order to have a approach to them, a style to them. And I point that out because this is dismissive bullcrap that pisses me off in all aspects of society. This type of argument is, oh, it's just such and such. Replace it with whatever. Oh, it's just, throwing something into the oven. Oh, it's just speeding up the song. Oh, it's just speaking into a microphone. Oh, it's just playing a video game. Oh, it's just talking on a camera. Oh, it's just reading lines. Just throwing out a few here. You got it, Baron. Give me 1 second. Thank you again. It is a dismissive argument that seems to stem from the fact, if I might be so bold, that people in general have absolutely no idea, or refuse to acknowledge, just how difficult it is to do things properly. If there's one thing I've learned in my years, it is that an enormous amount of things that look simple are not. And there is work and design and effort that goes into making those things look and sound and be the way they are. There is a degree of appreciation for the work involved, and someone like Applejack should know better. Because Applejack is a hard worker who also has several friends in multiple other fields where she is familiar with just how much work goes into those fields, including Rarity, someone she's been friends with since season 2. And I do point out, and I've been pointing this out as we go through the show, the friendship between Rarity and Applejack has been growing pretty much ever since the sleepover episode, right? From that point until the modern era, they've actually been legit. Like, they have a really good friendship going on. And there's been little tidbits and little moments here and there that really show that the two of them are actually real friends. AJ should have known better, and Rarity should have called her on it. Thanks you, James Hogan. Much obliged and appreciate, as always. If you happen to know where you want to put that sub, please let me know. Next point. Because I got a few more. This leads into the dress that drags behind because there's too much fabric. This is when I point out that Applejack is not just a practically minded person, but she is renowned as someone who is a problem solver, something we've seen before more than once. This is another thing that people do that pisses me off in general, complaining without critiquing. Offering no solution. This sucks. End statement. I will freely admit I am guilty of that too. I try very hard not to do that. I try to point out how you can do things better. In fact, I'm going to do that in this very episode. But I'm not going to do that yet. We got to build up how terrible this is before we try and explain how we can fix it. But the point is, it is an extremely common thing for someone to say, hey, you're doing it wrong. Oh, that looks like crap. At the 10-minute mark, Rarity should have pulled Applejack aside and had a nice talking to her. She doesn't. At first, this is a quote. Applejack comes out. Very true, Darth Maduro. Applejack comes out. Pinky's like, how'd it go? And Applejack's like, oh, first I didn't think I'd be much help. It's okay, Applejack. You weren't. Then Rarity comes out, all despondent. And Pinky's like, here, maybe this will help you out. Okay. This is probably the best moment of the entire episode. Make of that what you will. That got a legitimate laugh out of me. It probably helps that I actually make music to relax too, to unwind a little bit. I don't get to do it all the time because I usually can't justify the time commitment. But even when I'm just making my chordance mixes, like the songs you're listening to right now, and all the music that I play during Lore Week and Streaminations, it helps me to degauze, you know? It has not happened yet. I will put it towards, pick 2 or 3, James Hogan, if you don't mind my asking you to clarify which specific one you want to put it towards. Just for bookkeeping's sake. What's Applejack's heads? Yeah, Super Metroid is actually another thing. No, one has not already happened. One has already been funded, however. Again, we're not playing any of them until all of them are funded, but I am keeping track of which one is funded by whom and how much as a bookkeeping thing. Make sense? So, I do need you to pick 2 or 3. So, guitar scene was cool. Let's start really... that would be 3 then. You got it, James Hogan. Thank you again. Let's start really dissecting why Applejack is wrong. So, first of all, she's looking at Inky, whatever her name is, his outfit. Oh, God, what's her name? I wrote it down, even. Inky Rose. She's looking at Inky Rose's outfit with the buttons, and she says, too many buttons! All that means is getting up an hour before you get dressed. Okay. There's a validity to that. I did miss that comment, Lord Harriman. I didn't even see it was to you. I will put that towards Dragon Age 2. Thank you very much, Ciela, for that, because that's the one who donated that. Too many buttons. Now, okay, pause. Validity. There are outfits which take way too much damn time to put on. Now, Applejack's solution is to remove all the buttons and turn it into a cloak or a poncho. Here's the thing. That is a simplistic solution to a complex problem. Sound familiar? It is actually worth noting that there are plenty of outfits which look like they have more buttons than they actually do. There's a style to this, an approach to this. Now, this can be done well and done badly. But the point is, when done well, this allows you to have an outfit that has the styling of many buttons, but you actually only have like this one and this one, these 2 right here. And the rest are just for show, to give you the aesthetics of it, without making it take 7 years to put on. This is a specific styling that merges practicality and fashion. I'm pointing this out because that would have been a complex solution and an attempt to actually come across something that is more than just taking a sledgehammer to the situation and making it worse. Now, that... okay. I can at least forgive her that, even though no, that's not true. That's true. I cannot forgive her that. But it's the least offensive thing she's done. Then, this is a good time to bring up the second major problem in all this. The fashion ponies go along with whatever Applejack says. Now, that's not actually on them. It's not. And I'm going to explain why. It's on the judges, and it's on Rarity, who are not contesting Applejack. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take a moment and put yourself into the shoes of someone being part of a contest. Doesn't matter what. Dolls, music, video games, cooking, baking, clothing. Something you're interested in. Something you like and something you are passionate about, okay? Just put yourself in that headspace for a second. Now imagine, if you will, that 4 of the judges show up and one of them says, "Oh my god, that is junk. What are you doing?" And the other 3 say nothing. What do you do? How do you react? How do you feel? This is all on the other judges, to be completely blunt. I mean, even Applejack, who I want to re-stress, is in the wrong here. In fact, that's the whole Aesop of the episode. Even Applejack is not as in the wrong, in my opinion, as those other judges are. If a child slaps another child in the playground and no one corrects them, the adults present who are supervising don't do anything to intervene, who's that on? And yeah, I'm with you on that, Salvacom. If I put my music out there, because music is such a core central thing to my very soul. If I put my music out there and I had 4 judges and one of them told me that I just need to stop, I probably would. That would be devastating. It's worth noting that the episode makes a point, good animation, positive, that it shows how devastated each of the 3 designers are when Applejack tears them down. So, good job on that one. By the way, hate to point this out, but Applejack, just to continue to rehash this point, Applejack is not this oblivious. Her wisdom score is not that low. She has a perception stat. This brings us to the feather hat. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about Literally Forever Girl, who I'll admit got more of a laugh out of me than it probably should have. First of all, the way those feathers are layered is actually really well done, and is much harder to do than it sounds. That takes planning and forethought, and it requires her to... I don't want to fashion geek out too much here. She had to layer those feathers in a specific pattern in order to make sure that the ones on the rim would not conflict with the ones on the bowl. And then she had to make sure that the ribbon would actually complement those, rather than get in the way of the flow of how the feathers were moving. Whoever drew that actually did a really good job of designing how that should actually do. And yeah, it was hard with unicorn magic, which I remind you is freaking telekinesis. Imagine doing that with hand. So that, legit, it's actually probably one of the best actual outfits in the entire show. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Applejack then grabs it and outright destroys it. I like Sean's thing there. Outright destroys it. Allow me to pull a quote word for word. You don't need feathers on your head. That's her argument. Now, I point this out because the buttons thing, validity. But feathers? Her whole argument is you don't need feathers on your head. And then, to continue to character assassinate, because she's not dead enough yet, the next thing they do is they have her make, and I forget what this is called, a fallacy argument. A phallic? There's got to be a term for that. Because phallic is not the word I'm looking for right now. She makes a fallacy. She makes an incorrect argument, and I forget what the argument's called. It's the type of thing where you take a situation that doesn't apply to your current situation and apply it to your current situation. A logical fallacy, yeah. And thus, in so doing, you say, oh, well, because I tripped this one time, I should never wear those shoes again. You know, that kind of an argument, right? In this case, she says, oh, my sister. Well, she had a big old ribbon, which she was wearing wrong and was actually getting in the way. And once I got rid of it, it made it so much better for her workload. Total disconnect between those two things. Like, other than the fact that there is a hat involved, there is no logical correlation between those two instances. None. And just to really hammer this point in, again, that ribbon was dangling all the way down at her feet. These feathers are very tightly at the skull. Completely out of the way. Then she delves, as if we haven't had enough character assassination already. Did you know Applejack has already had more or less this exact same arc before? Oh, I couldn't think of the name of the episode and I didn't bother to look it up. I think it's Traja. You remember that? But this looks exactly like a brute you already have. Oh, but this one's different. No, it's like, okay, tell me which one is yours. What's that one? Well, I don't even know which one it is. Doodle, 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 doodle. By the end of the episode, Applejack has bought Rarity a something. I forget what it was. It was the same animation asset. It was back then, too. Hear me out for a second. She buys her a gift. She says, I know you're going to like it because you've got another one just like it back at home. Now, that sounds like a joke, but it's not. You know what that is? That's a friend understanding a friend. She doesn't get it personally, but she gets that Rarity gets it. And so she understands and respects, appreciates the variance in opinion that Rarity has from her. And so she gets her something to follow that opinion as a kindness and as a gesture, as a friend. Then, yet, I'm not even talking about the episode where Rarity makes all the dresses, because that was back in season 2? No, that was season 1. Yeah, that was season 1. I think. Pretty sure. Although, Weods is quite correct. She also learned this lesson back in season 1. So then she yells that fashion is ridiculous. Let's really dissect this one. You remember when Rainbow was upset at her parents? Rightfully? You remember that? Remember how the episode portrayed it as though Rainbow was horribly in the wrong for that? And the episode was horribly stupid for saying that? Yeah, so, the way Applejack says this is exactly like what that episode thought Rainbow was saying it like. This is the wrong word usage. This is the wrong tone. This is the wrong volume while we're on the subject. She actively yells, and in a very insulting way, that they suck. So that's the first problem. The second problem is she does this right next to Rarity. You remember my earlier point about how Rarity and Applejack have been growing in friends since, like, forever ago? Let's just repeat that. Just copy, paste, there we go. Now, let's move on to the fact that she says this in the middle of people who, you know, clearly and obviously love fashion and are clearly into it. Oh, and also Rarity, but I think I've already made that point. So this is just straight up rudeness and disrespectful at the most baseline level. Now, I wrote down a few quotes here. Quote number 1. I'm sorry, but that's my honest opinion. Quote number 2. What? I was just being honest. Quote number 3. Why are you mad at me? I was just saying what I thought. And quote number 4, in case I really gotta hammer this one in. But it's my opinion, and I'm not gonna lie. Applejack. Let's pause for a moment and critique, actually try to make this episode better. Ironically, this episode is incredibly easy to improve. All you have to do is replace Applejack with someone else. Bam. Done. It could be a guest pony. It could be one of the regular characters that, that we've seen before. It could be, and several people in chat pointed this out earlier, this could be Applebloom, who we've already seen already has an interest in fashion, already has leanings in that direction. And it could have been about how Applebloom was trying to, my big sis is honest about everything, so I've got to be honest. It's my opinion, and I'm not gonna lie. The biggest problem this episode has is that it's Applejack, because that's not Applejack. There are other issues with the episode, don't mistake me. There are small little problems and difficulties here and there which would need to be smoothing out and probably could use a polishing pass or two. But the biggest issue by a huge margin is the fact that Applejack is acting completely out of character in, I want to say every scene that she's in. That might be exaggerative. There might be a few moments where she's not out of character, like she's hauling apples at one point. That might not be out of character. And the problem here, and you might be thinking, well, that means the episode's good, right? No. Because this... It's a shame Larry doesn't hear. She rather dislikes this kind of characterization. This is the definition of character assassination. And it absolutely ruins the message and the quality of the episode to have the wrong character in the wrong role. Picture Star Trek: The Next Generation. Imagine for a moment that there's an episode which is entirely about, just hear me out for a second, entirely about how you shouldn't be a womanizer and you shouldn't sleep around with every woman you see. And naturally, if you think about the crew of the Enterprise D, the first thing you think for a character that would fit that would be Picard. And so Picard is acting like the archetype. I'm saying this wrong. The caricature. Picard is acting like the caricature of Kirk, and I say it that way because Kirk isn't actually that much of a womanizer either, believe it or not. He has the reputation, but that's just because of mimetic mutation. Kirk actually isn't that much of a womanizer. So Picard is wandering around like a sleazeball, like blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he's being the outrageous Akana. Good way to put that. And that, that's the exact same point I'm trying to make here. That could be a good episode, which has a good lesson and a good construct and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that it's Picard destroys it. It absolutely ruins the entire episode. And hey, here we are. Now this is important because the Aesop of this episode is massively important and something that I think everyone could stand to learn, either reiterate or to learn to begin with. I'm going to reiterate that quote. It's my opinion, and I'm not going to lie. That is a monumentally stupid statement. I don't actually think anybody in chat right now likes black licorice. Does anybody there like black licorice? Okay, Dream Whisper. Perfect. Cool. Imagine for a moment that this doesn't work because you're not passionate about black licorice. But I wanted to use a real example. Black licorice makes me sick. Like, it actually induces a vomit response in me. I have literally thrown up before from black licorice, okay? So, bleh is my reaction to black licorice. Now, I know that people like black licorice. I know people personally. Dream Whisper likes black licorice, right? I'd even turned it into a Lorium, for God's sakes. But what some people tend to do, and what Applejack is doing in this episode, is presuming that by virtue of the fact that black licorice makes me vomit, I can turn to you and say, what the hell is wrong with you? Liking black licorice is disgusting. Note how I phrase that. Not black licorice is disgusting, or I dislike black licorice, or black licorice is disgusting to me. But the very idea of liking black licorice is disgusting. Think about that. Now again, that doesn't work one-to-one, because that's just something you enjoy. In this case, it's worse than that, because she is dismissing something that is people's passion. Something that they really care about, something that they really push themselves into. To reverse this. Imagine for a moment that you took to me and said, and I've heard this before in my life, video games are stupid. I actually bet several of you have heard that phrase too. Maybe a few words are different, but I'm sure you've heard the intent before. Nobody actually likes video games. What kind of child are you? Grow up. How can you play video games? Stop wasting your life. I've heard that one too. Yeah. Now, I know that's the low-hanging fruit, but I went for it because I imagine most of you are at least a little bit passionate about gaming. I know I am. Ignoring the fact that it's my career, I have been studying and analyzing and going in-depth into video games since I was... God, I don't even know. I want to say about 8. Give or take. Right? This is an aspect of my life. You know, my core, if you will. The very idea... Yeah, exactly, Trihexi, which I also get all the time. The very idea of being so dismissive, well, that's hurtful, isn't it? And this is when the episode's Aesop shows up and is suddenly like, oh, this is a great Aesop. Strawberry Sunrise. Now, pay attention. This is exceptionally well presented. Hear me out for a second. Ooh, I like that idea, Weons. So first she says, apples? Don't like them. Notice everything about her presentation. Really zoom in the camera for a second. Give me just 1 second, Eclectic. I don't want to lose my train of thought. So, I'm losing my train of thought. Screw it. It's gone. Whatever. God damn it. Hang on. Eclectic. Oh. It's gone. Give me a second. I'll get it back. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Eclectic. Very, very much. Very much appreciate. Very much obliged. I've put that towards Metroid Dread, Mario plus Rabbids 2, and the Zelda block. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so. The way she is presented, the way her tone is, she just does a casual shake of her head, and it's really lightheaded. No, I don't like apples. That's it. Perfectly reasonable. No, I don't like video games. No, I'm not into sports. I don't like Formula 1. Super normal, super decent. Here's the interesting one, though. Applejack immediately gets defensive. Now, I bet a lot of you can relate to this one. I know I can. I actually still fight against this impulse to this day, although I've gotten a lot better at it because I've been practicing it for like 11 years, however long I've been streaming at this point. We tend to get defensive when something attacks something we like because we psychologically tend to associate ourselves with the things we like. Ergo, we are being attacked. Hence, we get defensive. It does make sense. It is, however, frankly, an invalid response, and it is something that, in my opinion, people should fight against. Should not get defensive, should not try to throw up the walls there, throw up the spikes like that. And again, we all screw up on that. I do too. I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone. It's just, it's a very natural psychological response. So Applejack gets very defensive. Sunrise escalates slightly. Her response, still being polite, is she just gives a light laugh. That's important, by the way, because it's diffusing the situation, making it clear she's not trying to attack Applejack. It's like, yeah, but they're not strawberries. And she takes a bite of a strawberry. And that's it. Still polite, still nonchalant, still light tone. Applejack starts to get angry and argumentative. At this point, Strawberry starts actually being aggressive. And actually gets to the point where she starts to look a little bit upset. And so, in response, she actually says, oh, well, only if by better you mean better at being disgusting. And she gives a very small little smile. Applejack reaches the point of yelling at this point, and then Strawberry gets supremely snarky and actually glares at her. This is exactly right. Right here. This is how this kind of conversation goes. I like this. Wait. No, there are people. We will not be silenced. Right? I mean, it's just, I like that thing. I like that thing. This is exactly how this goes. This happens in real life, not just on the internet. Because the internet isn't real life, obviously. You know, it happens in person, not just in the internet. I have observed this conversation happen probably in the hundreds range of times by this point in my life. So, Applejack gets angry enough to go red in the face, and this is when Rarity smacks her in the face. And Applejack says, and I quote, "If she knew how hard we worked to make our apples perfect, maybe she wouldn't be so mean about..." Oh. Once again, you see how this episode actually is legitimately great if it wasn't Applejack. Just replace her with someone else. Starlight, Apple Bloom, Random Pony. Bring in Coco Pamel, someone. Replace her with someone else and have her go through these same beats. You could even have Applejack be a part of this and be one of the people who helps to help whoever it is having the problem come to the realization here. This is what pisses me off so much about this episode, because this is a good lesson. Honesty and rudeness are not the same things. I've talked about that before just in these Streaminations, but never mind about how many other dozens of times I've mentioned that in my life. Tone and tact are important. And, you know, just like Strawberry Sunrise shows. What do you think about apples? I don't like them. There's a total difference, and I'm sure you've heard this before. I'm gonna try to lie. I'm really bad at lying, so I'm gonna try here. Give me just a second here. Let's say you asked me, Lore, what do you think of... Let's use a direct example. Xenogears, okay? Now, Xenogears, for those of you not familiar with, I want to give a little bit of backstory here. Xenogears is a JRPG pushed out by Squaresoft on the PlayStation 1. It is relatively well-beloved and has its own niche appeal of people who are very fond of the game. It also kind of launched a franchise, but let's not go into that right now, okay? Now, I hate Xenogears. But imagine the variance between... yeah, I don't like Xenogears. Not my kind of thing. Or... ugh, I hate Xenogears. That game is trash. Now, I'm probably failing at the tonality here because I'm lying, effectively, in my presentation. But the point is, a person's knee-jerk psychological and emotional reaction to those two different perspectives is going to be drastically different. So that's the first important lesson of this episode. Being honest does not mean being rude. Then there's the second lesson. Also, I don't think I ever did that, Savacom. I'm really hoping the second game is one I will enjoy more, Baron. I imagine it will be better regardless. In fact, I'm pretty sure I would have liked the first game a lot more if it had the Xbox features, you know, like the actual saves, not losing progress stuff, because that was just, ugh. Is there Savacom? You got me curious. Nope. I've never done a rumination on Xenogears. I have done Xenoblade. I have also done Xenosaga 1, 2, and 3. But I've never actually covered Xenogears. That's what I thought. We were talking about this earlier. Memory. And I have a good memory, and I still wasn't sure. Alright. Second lesson. This is important. It is possible to still appreciate and understand something that matters to someone else. I don't like black licorice. That doesn't mean that if you, Dream Whisperer, because it was you come to me and... I mean, I'd rather not. I actually really do not like Xenogears Tarth. Hate that game. If you, Dream Whisperer, came to me and said, you know, Lore, I found this amazing chunk. I found this store that sells really good black licorice, and you're super happy about it, right? Now, I can't stand black licorice. I can't even begin to understand why you like it. But that doesn't mean I need to be rude or a dick about it. That does mean I can still appreciate the fact that you appreciate it. I can still respect how much work and effort and thought you put into things, or how much time and passion someone else puts into something that I'm not into. It's really easy to understand from anyone's perspective, too. All you have to do is switch the roles. It's super easy to understand. All you have to do is be like, okay, so there's something I really care about, and I want to share it with someone else who is a friend of mine. Bam. Done. I am aware of Red vs. Blue. I knew about Red vs. Blue well before I ever played Halo. So, good lesson. Terrible execution. Rarity. There is no show. Take it all down. AJ. Show's back on, fellers. Those poor worker ponies. And then the episode actually got a legitimate laugh out of me. Pinkie Pie says, and then Applejack found me and told me to distract you for an hour, and the hour's up. Ta-da! That got me. That was good. Then they have the actual fashion show. Now, I spent way too much time writing down all my notes and really dissecting how much this episode sucks. So I decided to not pause and actually fashion geek out a little bit, but I will say at a glance that Inky Rose's outfits were probably the best there in my opinion, especially from a design perspective. Also, I love her a little bit. You made me feel happy, trying to smile. That got a chuckle too. There's also an interesting idea which the episode doesn't touch on at all, in that Applejack judged the costumes based on the effort put into them. Because she couldn't judge them based on the fashion. She lacked the tools to do so. So she only judged them based on the passion, the effort. And then the episode goes into a wah-wah. That's 2 wah-wahs. I need to write those down. This episode sucks. Now, I don't think this is blue territory, and I've already stated why. I think because the actual core message, as well as the structure of the episode itself, is quite fine. It is absolutely ruined by virtue of the fact that it's Applejack, as I gave my Picard example earlier. But, yeah, I'm leaning towards green. But wow. What actually irritates me, this is the second time in recent memory where I've had to say, this episode was better than I thought after I rewatched it with analysis mode on. Remember me saying that during parental guidance? That was like last week, wasn't it? Either way, I think we're going to go ahead and rate this one a green. Not good at all. Those of you who don't remember, green is it's bad. It's not good. That's not good. And now, hopefully I will not have to pause the episode 20 times. Because now we have to cover A Royal Problem, Season 7, Episode 10. This one's by the... what are their names? It's the duo. There it is. Joanna Lewis and Christine Stonko, who, if you remember, has given us greens, reds, and everything in between. So we'll see where this one lines up. In about 25 minutes.